In today's mental health check, you've likely heard the saying, don't judge a book by its cover. But honestly, sometimes that's easier said than done.
Judging other people, even judging ourselves, is totally normal. In fact, we make judgment calls every single day. But experts say a judgmental attitude can actually be harmful to our mental well-being. Joining us now to talk more about it, family and clinical psychologist Jennifer Hartstein. Great to see you as always.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just start basic. What are some of the reasons that we do this, that we judge other people?
Well, there is one fundamental reason, which is kind of for survival, right? Now we don't necessarily need it the same way, but it taps into our fight or flight response. So we need to have these judgments because there's this natural instinct, right? Maybe we grew up in families that judgments were just kind of a way of the world. So it's become part of what we've learned. It's like a habit that we know. We feel better about ourselves when we judge other people sometimes, so there is that. And oftentimes we judge because we're envious, so we need to like bring someone down a peg to make ourselves feel a little better.
I mean, all of that feels a little negative, to be honest. And I know there is some research that finds that the more we judge, the worse we feel, or maybe the more negative we feel.
Yes.
So talk to us about how being judgmental actually does affect the person doing the judging.
Yes, and it does a lot. And so basically, if we think about what being judgmental or being judgy is, it's really kind of walking around with a negative attitude, right? And so when we are judging, I like to talk about it in therapy as it's kind of the volume control on our emotions. So the more you judge, the more your emotions kind of escalate. And you stop and think about it when you get into that negative judgment pattern, you watch your emotions spiral downwards. So there are a lot of negative impacts on us. It makes us more stressed. It impacts our relationships. It impacts how we feel about ourselves. So we really need to be aware of them.
Yeah, so here's the million-dollar question. How do we judge less? How do we stop?
Such an important question. So like with most things, the first thing we need to do is just notice that we're doing it, right? So we need to just be aware. What am I doing here? Oh, I'm making these judgments. And then I like to talk about not judging our judgments, right? And what does that mean? Well, we're going to make them. But when we make them, and we're like, oh, but I'm not supposed to be doing that. Now we're judging ourselves again, right? So we're now in a judgment loop about ourselves. So notice that you're doing it. Don't judge that you're doing it. And then reframe it and try and do something else and try and approach with curiosity so that you can understand why you're doing it.
Right, and it's not all external, right? Can we talk about the inner critic, the inner judge that can often, for many people, be really loud?
Yes, and we all have that too. And so sometimes that can be really motivating. Like, what am I doing? How can I do this better? Whatever. But that inner critic and that negative self-talk, we know it impacts our depression and it makes us more anxious and it might have us withdraw. So we need to be able to stop and say, okay, this is all negative self-talk. What are my facts? How do I know this is really true? And maybe even reach out to trusted people and be like, can I run this by you? I need a reality check, and use that as a skill.
What if you're on the other side of someone who's judgmental of you? How do you deal with that?
It's so important. And, you know, we've talked about this before. The first thing you have to do is set some boundaries, right? If someone is really coming at you with all sorts of stuff, set those boundaries. Maybe limit your exposure to that person, because if I'm with you and all you do is make me feel badly, I'm out. Like, I don't need, you know, I can do that to myself, right? I don't need someone's help. And then maybe I'm going to kind of figure out how to be strategic in my response to you. Am I going to maybe use some humor about it? Am I going to maybe just kind of push back a little bit? Or am I going to highlight that you're doing this? But I think at the end of the day, if you don't make me feel good about myself, I need to protect that first.
I love that. Do a little inventory of how people are making you feel.
Yes.
I appreciate that at the start you said judgment has historically been used to keep us alive.
Yes.
So how can we use it moving forward in a positive way?
So you want to think about, you know, when we're judgy, it's like this negative attitude, right? But we have to have value judgments in our life. If you don't make me feel good, I'm going to make the judgment call to remove myself. So follow that and go by my personal values.
Love that. Jennifer Hartstein, always good to have you. Thank you so much.
Happy Friday. There's much more news ahead.
You're watching NBC News.